Never go on trips with anyone you do not love. Happiness in intelligent people is the rarest thing I know. When writing a novel, a writer should create living people, people not characters. A character is a caricature. Madam, all stories, if continued far enough, end in death, and he is no true storyteller who would keep that from you. Hesitation increases in relation to risk in equal proportion to age. When you have shot one bird flying, you have shot all birds flying. They are all different and they fly in different ways, but the sensation is the same, and the last one is as good as the first. The best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. The game of golf would lose a great deal if croquet mallets and billiard cues were allowed on the putting green. The good parts of a book may be only something a writer is lucky enough to overhear, or it may be the wreck of his whole damn life, and one is as good as the other. That terrible mood of depression of whether it's any good or not is what is known as the artist's reward. Cowardice is almost always simply a lack of ability to suspend functioning of the imagination. I like to listen. I have learned a great deal from listening carefully. Most people never listen. You're beautiful, like a mayfly. Time is the least thing we have of. That is what we are supposed to do when we are at our best, make it all up, but make it up so truly that later it will happen that way. I love to go to the zoo. But not on Sunday. I don't like to see the people making fun of the animals, when it should be the other way around. We are all apprentices in a craft where no one ever becomes a master. There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow men. True nobility lies in being superior to your former self. Always do sober what you said you'd do drunk. That will teach you to keep your mouth shut. Bullfighting is the only art in which the artist is in danger of death, and in which the degree of brilliance in the performance is left to the fighter's honor. Why should anybody be interested in some old man who was a failure? All good books have one thing in common: they are truer than if they had really happened. There are events which are so great that if a writer has participated in them, his obligation is to write truly rather than assume the presumption of altering them with invention. An intelligent man is sometimes forced to be drunk to spend time with his fools. Courage is grace under pressure. Decadence is a difficult word to use, since it has become little more than a term of abuse applied by critics to anything they do not yet understand or which seems to differ from their moral concepts. There is no friend as loyal as a book. As you get older, it is harder to have heroes, but it is sort of necessary. There is no lonelier man in death, except the suicide, than that man who has lived many years with a good wife and then outlived her. If two people love each other, there can be no happy end to it. The only thing that could spoil a day was people. People were always the limiters of happiness, except for the very few that were as good as spring itself. Switzerland is a small, steep country, much more up and down than sideways, and is all stuck over with large brown hotels built on the cuckoo clock style of architecture. I know only that what is moral is what you feel good after, and what is immoral is what you feel bad after. When I have an idea, I turn down the flame, as if it were a little alcohol stove, as low as it will go. Then it explodes, and that is my idea. fear of death increases in exact proportion to increase in wealth. All things truly wicked start from innocence. For a war to be just, 3 conditions are necessary: public authority, just cause, right motive. In modern war, you will die like a dog for no good reason. Never think that war, no matter how necessary, nor how justified, is not a crime. When you go to war as a boy, you have a great delusion of immortality. Other people get killed, not you. Then, when you are badly wounded the first time, you lose that illusion, and you know it can happen to you. Wars are caused by undefended wealth. Once we have a war, there is only one thing to do. It must be won. For defeat brings worse things than any that can ever happen in war. The first panacea for a mismanaged nation is inflation of the currency, the second is war. Both bring a temporary prosperity, both bring a permanent ruin. But both are the refuge of political and economic opportunists. Man is not made for defeat. A man can be destroyed but not defeated. If you are lucky enough to have lived in Paris as a young man, then wherever you go for the rest of your life it stays with you, for Paris is a movable feast. The man who has begun to live more seriously within begins to live more simply without. I love sleep. My life has the tendency to fall apart when I'm awake, you know? Every man's life ends the same way. It is only the details of how he lived and how he died that distinguish one man from another. All my life I've looked at words as though I were seeing them for the first time. If a writer knows enough about what he is writing about, he may omit things that he knows. The dignity of movement of an iceberg is due to only 1/9 of it being above water. I'm not going to get into the ring with Tolstoy. All modern American literature comes from one book by Mark Twain called Huckleberry Finn. It's none of their business that you have to learn how to write. Let them think you were born that way. All our words from loose using have lost their edge. I always rewrite each day up to the point where I stopped. When it is all finished, naturally you go over it. You get another chance to correct and rewrite when someone else types it, and you see it clean in type. The last chance is in the proofs. You're grateful for these different chances. You can write anytime people will leave you alone and not interrupt you. Or, rather, you can if you will be ruthless enough about it. But the best writing is certainly when you are in love. My aim is to put down on paper what I see and what I feel in the best and simplest way. A man's got to take a lot of punishment to write a really funny book. Never confuse movement with action. There is nothing to writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. A serious writer is not to be confounded with a solemn writer. A serious writer may be a hawk or a buzzard or even a popinjay, but a solemn writer is always a bloody owl. Pound's crazy. All poets are. They have to be. You don't put a poet like Pound in the loony bin. Once writing has become your major vice and greatest pleasure, only death can stop it. I rewrote the ending to Farewell to Arms, the last page of it, 39 times before I was satisfied. I don't like to write like God. It is only because you never do it, though, that the critics think you can't do it. I learned never to empty the well of my writing, but always to stop when there was still something there in the deep part of the well, and let it refill at night from the springs that fed it. For a long time now I have tried simply to write the best I can. Sometimes I have good luck and write better than I can,